Hey y'all, welcome and welcome back to another episode of Harrison Talks Pod, episode 46. I hope you're having a great day today. And hey, if you're back home in America or wherever you are around the world and you're celebrating holidays, I hope you have a great Christmas or holiday, whatever you're celebrating because this will be our last episode before Christmas. And that doesn't mean too much where I live, but I'm kind of feeling the holiday season this year. Kind of feeling good. Sometimes it's rough, you know? Sometimes it's rough. Anyways, we are here to talk about NBA basketball today. And since I've been yapping lately, I kept it to two segments today. First off, it is the perfect time for us to finally go in depth about the Minnesota Timberwolves. They just beat the OKC Thunder, who have now lost two in a row. And the Timberwolves are on a kind of a streak, seven of their last nine. So let's break down why they've improved and how they can even get better from here. And then I want to talk about one of my favorite League Pass and modern NBA teams, which is usually pretty chaotic and you'll see a lot of points. So if you like offense, they're fun to watch. I'm talking about the Utah Jazz. Let's talk about them a little bit and after the Timberwolves, and we'll talk about why they are fun to watch some nights, but wow, they could score 130 and still lose. So we'll kind of go in depth and have fun breaking down some of those numbers. Like, subscribe if you're on YouTube, do all the YouTube things. Harrison Talks Pod is part of Side Panel Network. We have Nintendo Therapy Podcast that usually comes out weekly. We missed last week because some holiday things going on. But actually, we're back next week, so we barely miss. We barely do. I have my gaming channel, daily uploads lately. That's been super fun for me to do. And all the other links are in the description as always because I'm yapping now. Let's get into it. So, what do we say every week about the Western Conference? What a powerhouse. Leave a comment if you want to about this. How many of the top teams are in the West right now? Is it the two best teams are in the West, the three best teams are in the West, the four best teams are in the West? Because I think it might be four of the best teams in the entire league sit in one conference right now. With that being said, the Timberwolves are currently sixth, and they are only a game and a half out of fourth, where the Los Angeles Lakers sit, who also have been, well, they if you watch the game, this I'm recording this on a Sunday but Saturday evening back home. If you saw that Lakers game against the Clippers, oh my god, so fresh. I almost turned it off a few times because I just hate all those missed three pointers. I digress. We're talking about the Timberwolves today, though. Seven of the last nine they've won. They are 6-2 in December. From November onward, their net rating is at a plus 8.3, where their season average is at a plus 4.5. So the trajectory is certainly going upwards. And as I mentioned, they beat the Thunder just last night, or that would be Friday night back home. And it was certainly a proof of concept. It was certainly an example of what the Timberwolves have looked like lately. And let's talk a little bit about that because, yeah, it was kind of an overall what the whole team looked like. So, Thunder headed in 24-2. I completely forgot if the semifinal cup game counted in the regular season. It does. You see, you only play one extra game if you go to the finals. Yeah, no problem, right? So 24-2 heading into it, second loss in a row. And watching the game or watching it back, it didn't seem random. And it was certainly an off night for the Timberwolves, but it was also an off night for the OKC Thunder as well. Timberwolves were down 10 in the first quarter. They did not pull ahead until the fourth quarter. They won the third quarter, but were still down 1 point, and they held the Thunder to 22 points in the fourth quarter. Thunder also only scored 18 points in the second quarter, but had a lead going into halftime. So not not the most fun night if you're focused a lot on the shooting, which I usually am, but kind of a tough, gritty win. And I'm gonna say it at least two times during this. If I'm a Minnesota fan, these are the type of wins that I'm looking for, where my team is starting to look better early on the season. Well, in the first half of the season, and then there's still room to grow because what? They shot 34% overall in the first half, but Minnesota, they never really collapsed on the defensive end, and they won those final possessions, closed out the game, and Anthony Edwards, your star player, closed out the game and made those big plays. So while it was a kind of a frustrating night on the shooting end on both sides. OKC shot 37%, 28% from three in the entire game. I just, at some point, I'm just like, do something else, you know? Uh, Still thinking of, okay, let's move on. Let's move on before I get distracted, though. So what happened late? Randall missed a free throw. Edward hits a pull up three with 38 seconds left, and then Edwards gets the steal from SGA on the next trip. So, right, it's an example of what we've seen in Minnesota recently. Uh, their offense is stabilizing, but their defense is offering that anchor, and they're usually closing out their defensive possessions the correct way. And on the other end, underperformance. They are seventh in the league in offense right now, which is certainly a competitive team. You know, if you're stable on the defensive end, they are 117.1, which is good enough for seventh in the league. Their shooting isn't bad this season. Overall, effective field goal percentage, 55.9%. And their assist rate is also in the top half of the league at 62.5%. So nothing is completely broken about the Timberwolves offense, but there seems to be some frustration with this team and how can they improve also. They don't shoot a lot from the mid range. Of course, only 5% of their shots come from mid range. They shoot 43% from three. I'm not sure where that compares to the rest of the league, but certainly they have a modern style offense. And when there's less rhythm, you'll see their offense kind of tighten up on that end. And assertiveness is what you'd want to see from the Timberwolves as well. In the last 4 seconds, they shoot 36% from the field, and in the last 4 seconds, they shoot 21% from three. So the Timberwolves should be looking at getting into their half court offense or just offense quicker and being more assertive. And we're seeing examples of not just Anthony Edwards, but players off the bench as well that are helping control and anchor the second unit, whether it's Naz Reid, whether it's Dante DiVincenzo. We're seeing more of a stabilization. There's just some nights where, hey, the shots weren't falling in the OKC game, and they were still able to pull it off because they just made the bigger plays at the end of the game. So, defensive rating 112.7 in the top half of the league. Offensive, defense, effective field goal percentage is at 52%. So they are at an advantage there on most nights. And their defensive rebounding percentage is at 69.6%, certainly in the top half of the league. Their defense doesn't maybe suffocate teams like maybe some other top teams in the league, but they are a very smart defensive team and they are usually ending their possessions the correct way. That's why ugly games, if I could call the Thunder game an ugly game, that's why they are staying close and often closing them out, 6 of their last 8, 7 of their last 9. Rudy Gobert is offering anchoring that defense. He's had a very nice season. He is plus 8.5 in his net rating. He had 14 rebounds against the Thunder, and he often anchors that paint when there are offensive droughts. Nas Reed, nice season, 14 points off the bench, averaging, and keeps the offensive alive. In that second unit, same thing with Dante DiVincenzo. He's shooting 38% from three this season, so he's someone that you at least have to watch from the 3-point line. That's all you need. He was a plus 12 against the Thunder, and he is certainly offers spacing in that second unit as well. Let's talk about Anthony Edwards. So I did see Hoops Collective that did their first round of straw poll, and Edwards had a couple of votes, like a fifth place or a fourth place vote, and was 12th overall. So he's getting recognition. He's not in that trajectory because if you listen to the whole episode, it's really a two-man race at this point, and then there's some really good other players in the league right now, of course. But not talking too much about that, just certainly is getting some recognition. And I would agree with what Brian Windhorst said on that podcast that I think there should be more attention centered around him. Like he is a superstar player, or at least hitting that superstar status. He is certainly, I think, good enough to be built around, and his personality is just great. I think on both ends, like, why am I not seeing Anthony Edwards on my TV more? So I would agree with that point. Anyways, certainly the team revolves around him. He's at a 30% usage this season. He's averaging 28.5 points per game, and his true shooting percentage is 63.8. So his efficiency numbers have gone up, and let's see, is this the the prime or him entering the prime of his career, or is there also this extra level that we're about to get to with him? Because after like Jokic and players like that, I'm a little bit hesitant on uh, predicting on when a player's prime actually is. I've been wrong so much. He's efficient, so there's not a lot of empty scoring and empty possessions when he's got the ball, and he's holding up under pressure, made some really big plays against the top team in the entire league. He is settling late, which is bad. He does make poor decisions for stretches of time. So, again, if I'm a fan of this team, I'm just focusing on can this team be more efficient and shoot better and just keep all of the other good things that we've mentioned as the season goes on. So, had a very nice game in the last game. So, to close it, yes, they've won 7 of 9. They are in 6th place. In a week's time, they could be in 4th place, or in a week's time, they could be down. Well, they're 2.5 above the 7th place team right now. But it's our turn to speculate, including you, the listener, with how the West is. They could end as a top 3 seed, or they could be in the play in as an 8, 9, 10 seed. All of those things are possible. My prediction, they're in the top 6. They're out of the play in, but I'm going to kind of leave it open ended with where exactly they end up in the West. Because I don't know. I think this is a great team. I think it's more about the status of the conference that they are in. And certainly is ranking up on my League Pass rankings. So now, let's do the fun one. Let's talk about the Utah Jazz. So I've talked on here, I don't know how many times about my love of the Utah Jazz. And I did start the podcast last season which would be the season where you wouldn't really like watching the Utah Jazz too much, but that was the one time. Like that was last season was finally the time where that organization said, "Fine, we're gonna tank. We're gonna not try and win games," which might be where they should be this season with how the draft is going. Did they have their pick that way? With how the draft is going and with how the West is, because will this team compete? But, anyways, it's pretty clear that this team is going to win, or have they already won more games than last season? I shouldn't start my segment by asking questions. But, anyways, Uh, over here on Harrison Talks Pod, we try not to rely too much on eye test, but of course, we gotta watch the games if we're gonna talk about them. And I enjoy watching the Utah Jazz. It's just that a lot of times when I'm watching them, I don't know what I'm going to tune into. So maybe that's kind of the exciting part to it. Because for all I know, this team could score 130 points against a really good team and still lose. Or they could get a blowout where they score like 102, 100 points, 105 points, something like that. So I felt that way. And I always felt like their defense wasn't that serious, like point of attack defense. Like I always felt like that was lacking. And again, some of the best offensive players in the league. So I wanted to deep dive them today and, well, getting prepared for this episode and see if my feelings were correct. And I think they are. I think they are. So let's talk about a couple parts about the Utah Jazz. And I'll also, hopefully, in the meantime, also talk about how they're just a prime example of a modern NBA team. And while I don't think they are serious, I do think they are an honest team, at least. So, if honesty means anything for the sports that you watch, it might be kind of enjoyable for a NBA League Pass team. So, yes, will they win the West? Probably not. But anyways, they average 119.6 points per game. They give up 126.8. And I'll do a little breakdown of their different numbers and wins and losses in just a moment. They are 10 and 16. They are a negative net rating at negative 6.9, and their pace is right at 103 possessions per game. Certainly in the top half, top 10, I'm sure, of the league. They choose speed, they choose confidence, I think, because I think this team is very confident for how old some of these players are, and they focus on volume. And it certainly feels like when I watch these games and I watch this team play defense or try to play defense, that there is a certain trade off with all of it. And I think for most nights when I tune in, I'm correct. I think I've watched a lot of Utah Jazz basketball this season. I feel like I'm back. I don't know if they're gonna be a playing team, maybe not, but it certainly has been fun. And they have not, if they were gonna embrace the tank, well, there are certainly some games where they could have lost this season that they won. They shoot 43% of their shots from three, which is more on the top half. And with attempting 43s per game, that's sometimes where these games start and end. Um, Often on wins, they are often making 15 or more of their threes. And that is how, when they win, they are averaging 132.8 points per game. So their shots don't fall. probably going to lose. Their shots are falling at this, frantic pace they usually play at. They could very easily score over 130 points. Wow. On wins, that's just insane. They're a fun team on offense because of the way they move the basketball around. Their assist rate is at 71%, and they average nearly 30 assists per game on most nights. So their pace stays high even on nights where they are losing. So again, if you're a big stickler on defense, might not be the team. But if you want a team that is going to try and move the ball and certainly has a, star, has been all-star player in the past, but relies a lot on their core and their identity, kind of a fun team. Also, if you don't care too much about whether that team wins or loses every night, because I always like to put my perspective of if I was a Utah Jazz fan, I think, well, they're fun. We got some tools. We got a young core. We're not going to win this season, but it's kind of fun to watch them. I think that's how I'd feel. I think if you're a Jazz fan, you got to leave a comment right now. So I mentioned 132 points per game in wins. Their offensive rating is 124.7. Less turnovers, of course, and they're in a positive net rating at plus 8.9. On losses, they average 111 points per game. So this is maybe the part where I would be wrong. So we are having nights where the offense just collapses or they're just not making their shots, especially at the 3 point. Offensive rating 107.6, more turnovers. Their opponent's efficiency goes up by a lot, and they sit way, way low in the net rating on losses at a minus 17. So chaotic for sure. Every night is going to be most likely a lot of possessions, high pace, trying to get out in transition, but sometimes the track meet does not mean that they're playing the most efficiently at the same time. But they got some tools. They certainly got some tools. Home and road. Home, they're certainly better. They're averaging above 126 points per game at home. On the road, there's certainly different outcomes on different nights. Their efficiency isn't as good on the road, and their defense, especially point of attack defense, is just not saving them whatsoever. Lord Markkinen, we've mentioned a little bit. He's averaging 27.8 points per game, strong efficiency, and just fits this fast paced offense perfectly. And when they are losing games, he's not really there to slow down the pace of the offense. So, if anything, perhaps this team, as the season goes on, unless they decide to tank, perhaps they do try working more in the shot clock and in their half court offense if they are even looking towards being a 10th place team. Don't know what their goals are for the season. So, um, other guards that I really like to watch, Keontae George, been in the news lately, right? He has a LeBron, right? Comments about him? I don't know. 24 points per game. Great. Almost 7 assists per game. His usage is at 27.5, which has just shot up a whole bunch. Really fun, high volume creator to watch on most nights. Draws fouls at a high rate. Um, Offensive rating is at 115, is certainly not a guard that is slowing down the pace at all. Isaiah Collier is averaging 6 assists per game in just 22 minutes. His assist percentage is 39%, while his ratio is 2.9. So pushes the tempo immediately when he's on the floor. Walter Clayton Jr. 3.2 assists in 16 minutes, 27% assist percentage. And the one name that I'll always mess up, but let's try it. Zvi Mikhailuk. How did I do? Over 40% from three this season. Doesn't dribble a whole lot. Shoots quickly off the pass and forces defensive rotations. Certainly provides an offensive threat. So, uh, while this team has a lot of young, chaotic guards and a chaotic offense, on any night even if Markkanen would not have the best night, you do have other players that will step up, and just really excited to see what the future of the team or what this what these young players are. So, defense, I labeled in my notes, call it what it is with Love, but do I mean Kevin Love? I don't know. I don't know. Probably not. Opponent field goal percentage is almost 49%. Their effective field goal percentage is at 57%. And opponents are making 126.8 points per game on average. That's just average wins and losses. Now, with that being said, I don't think Utah is playing lazy basketball. It is a trade off. Is it a trade off that is good in this modern NBA with this sort of competition? I don't think so. But I do like their coach. I do like Will Hardy, and I do like some of these young players. It's just more of a fun team that you can turn on, and if they're got a fun matchup, then you'll most likely see an entertaining game on both ends. Their incentives, their goals, not totally sure. I don't completely believe in this system. I think for them to be actually competitive, one, it might be the depth. It might be when you look at the top teams in this league, but also their, I've said point of attack a lot. Their defense just has to be way, way better if they want to compete in the West. And we've talked about the firepower there. Offense rating is at 114. Their pace is at 103. Points per game is 119.6. So I thought they were chaotic, fun, but unstable. And when I looked into it, I think that's the case. On any night, they can score 130, but also lose because they can have 130 points scored on them as well any night. They don't slow down to protect their leads. They don't rely on their defense when their shots aren't falling. And now my dogs are barking if you heard that. So that means it's time to finish up. Have a great holiday if you're celebrating anything. And we'll be back before the new year. We'll have one more before then. Like, subscribe, do the things on YouTube if you're there. Leave a comment if you can, if you're at on a platform where you have comments. Just do whatever to help the algorithm and get the show out there. And I will see you next time.